Welcome everyone, good evening, and thank you for joining us for the, I think, 11th episode now of the Hot Breach podcast. Again, today, as always, we have a lot of Siege to talk about, some other games as well, maybe just a little bit, and then finishing off on Pro League and your questions answered. With me again, as always, Prodigio Pete and Get Flanked. How's it going, guys?
Doing good, doing good. Happy to be here. Happy to talk about the pretty packed agenda that we have for today's show.
Yeah, absolutely. Excited. And let's maybe kick things off straight away with some patch notes that we've been shown by Ubisoft. It's the Year 3, Season 3, 1.2 patch notes. So these are... Yeah, it takes a while to get through. It's definitely a mouthful. But yeah, it's probably the best way of numbering them. They've started this quite a while ago and been going with that. So let's maybe quickly look at those. I don't want to go into too much depth here because these are the patch notes, or this is the patch that is coming out of the recent test server phase that we've been going through. There's been quite a few iterations of the test server during its lifetime, which is quite new. This has been an unusually long testing phase as well. And this is basically what will come into the main game out of that. And I think the more important information that we get in these notes is what will not be coming to the main game, and that is the rebalancing. There were a lot of things being tested in terms of especially Clash and how she works, and rebalancing her, nerfing her quite considerably, and we've talked about that in past episodes. All of that is being dropped, and what this will be is mainly a bug fix and exploit fix patch. So if we go through sort of the general notes here, the first and foremost thing that is getting fixed, and this is a really good update, is that deployable shields can no longer be placed underneath windows to prevent vaulting or swinging in from the rappel. It's something that's been, sadly, a feature of the game since launch that has just been exploited more and more, and it can affect a lot of defensive sites quite significantly when you can just stop people from coming in from a certain direction. It just means that you only have to hold certain angles. So that's getting fixed. Great stuff. And that's basically the biggest new update we're seeing, guys. So we're seeing some other things like in the invisibility glitch, pistol misalignment, a toggle for Montagna and Pulse, which we talked about in the past, and other things like not being able to access the bulletproof camera when you're lying down and meleeing and stand up. The knife animation will switch to a shield animation, which is a bit bizarre. Stun grenade VFX were able to be cancelled under certain conditions, which sounds quite bad, and that's being fixed. And other things like latency and microstutters, which I've seen a lot of people talking about getting fixed. But all in all, this is predominantly a bug fix patch rather than anything else.
Yeah, and the big thing that I would reiterate is the Monty and Pulse toggle. It makes you wonder, why didn't we get this earlier? Because I've already used it, and it is a dream come true for anybody who's ever played Pulse in Clubhouse down in the Arsenal, where you're looking up at kitchen and you're there for like 3 minutes straight trying to, so that's very welcome. And obviously the shield thing, like, again, kind of the same question, why didn't we get this earlier? So maybe we should just call this patch the thank God it's finally here patch. Better late than never patch. How about that?
I think that's fair. Peter, do you have any thoughts on these?
No, none.
Fair enough. And I think that if we go through the notes, there's also a whole bunch of small details that are getting fixed on maps, which is a good thing, always a good thing. I have to say, so from a player's perspective, I mostly never even noticed these, and then the patch notes come out and I thought, oh my god, that was a thing? Okay, I completely missed that. But obviously it affects some players, and it's good to see those fixed. Some operators getting fixed. There was apparently a funny bug where if Buck mounts Tachanka's LMG turret with his shotgun equipped and then gets off, then no one could use the turret afterwards. It's a very bizarre and very specific bug that probably wasn't really an impact on anyone's game ever. But hey, it's being fixed. So a whole bunch of things, also considering different operators. One thing I think that is really worth mentioning is that Maverick's blowtorch did not make a sound when it was used on a wall for the very first time. That was a bug which is being fixed with this patch update, and something we've talked about as well, so that's quite a good thing to see going.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. The other thing is, I think the big one is that invisibility one. Do you know how is this being implemented on all platforms yet? Sorry. I think this come to console yet?
No, I think predominantly PC at the moment. Console is lagging a bit behind.
According to Quoros, they're going to be coming with a balancing patch here within the next couple of weeks, and I think his thinking was that they're going to roll both onto console at that time, and just 2 separate ones for PC.
All right, because I know how people were doing that now, but I don't want to say. I'll just leave it.
Yeah, was it exactly the same bug that we saw essentially quite a while ago?
I don't think so.
Was it not? Was it different?
So.
Okay.
I don't know. I can't say that for sure. But I think that if it had been, we would have seen it the whole time, and I feel like it went away for a while.
Oh, it definitely did go away. I think I remember how it was done, and it was a thing, and people could do it on purpose, and sometimes it happened by accident, and then it was patched out, and it came back with this most recent season. So I think that's how that worked. But yeah, let's not discuss how that works. Any kind of exploit is always a shame, and spreading it helps no one. So that's it basically. Not quite the impact we were expecting, certainly not in terms of balance, but at least we're seeing a lot of major bugs being ironed out. And with that, maybe let's move on to a topic that is quite a hot topic right now, and that is the Halloween event leaks. I think I'm calling these leaks, it's pretty much confirmed. We're definitely getting a Halloween event, possibly revealed within the next few days, that will be coming to Siege. So what I want to do here is maybe talk about what do we know at this stage, and what do we think this is going to be, before maybe talking a bit more general about events coming to Rainbow Six, seasonal events or individual events in general. So let's start off with, what do we know about Halloween? How do we know that this is going to be a thing? Pete, I'm sure you know about this.
Actually, it's down to Ubisoft. What happened was, after one of these small updates a while ago, some people loaded back into the game, and they had the, you know, along the bottom, you get the little news feed, and some people had as part of that news feed, a little thing promoting the Halloween event on a house. And there's been subsequent leaks too, which have corroborated it. So it's almost certainly going to happen. Considering as well, we're recording this or going live on the 22nd of October, I should think we are going to hear something more this week. I mean, we need to really, because Halloween's next Monday?
Yeah. And you would, I mean, you would, if it's going to be an event, you would think that it would be open for at least a week to 2 weeks for an event. Sure. So I would imagine you're right there, Pete.
Yeah. So that's how we know about it. It's actually, and then what happened was that was during the game maintenance, and then when people re-logged back in, it was completely gone. And I swear they do that. That's intentional to get people hyped about, you know, the forthcoming event. So that's how we know about it.
I think something else we've seen more recently than that as well is that you know how every week on a Tuesday the challenges reset. I'm pretty sure at one point it also started showing the Halloween event challenge as upcoming challenges. So that must have been a choice to show that. So people have been referring to this as leaks, and I suppose back when it occurred at the first time, maybe it was, or it at least seemed to be, but we know for sure that Halloween event is coming. So maybe then, what do we think this is going to be? Is this going to be a revamp of a couple of maps? Is this going to include some kind of scary skin bundle for various operators?
What, the actual event itself, or?
Yeah, because I mean, we had bundles for, I think, at least 4 operators come out last year. I think there was Mira, there was Hibana, Ash, and maybe one more. So
Pulse.
Pulse. Yeah, so we had Halloween bundles be launched last year, which is kind of like a miniature event. It is something that is seasonal, that was tied in. I'm sure we're going to see that. Definitely sure we're going to see that. But beyond that, what else are we going to see? Are we going to see like a reskinned version of Outbreak? Will there be zombies? Will there be... What are we expecting?
Well, let's talk about that card. That card was leaked early. It was a picture of House with like jack-o'-lanterns in the windows of House, and then like it was a far away picture, so it wasn't like you were like zoomed in. It was like a far away picture of House. You could see jack-o'-lanterns in the windows and a little bit kind of like fog effects or something like that. And then you had one of the operators that was like looking like a Halloween skin, like in like the bottom corner of the picture.
Yeah, that the actual sort of leaked image. So what it was, you know how, for example, when a new map comes into the game and you can go on the playlist and just play that new map.
Yeah,
that's how the event looked. So the event was you could click on it and you go to a casual sort of game mode, which is just, from what it looked at least, house map, but completely reskinned. So the very least I think we can expect the Halloween mode to be is a set playlist where you go and play at least house map. There may be other maps, but it looked like it was just house map. And I think the very minimum you can expect is for it to be, you know, spooky and to have all sorts of, you know, Halloween themed bits and pieces on the house map reskinned onto it for the event. But I think you made a good point that there could potentially be some kind of AI zombies or something like that in the event, because of course, you know, they've already coded all of that for the Outbreak game mode. So it would seem to me to be a possibility, and I would say if they went down that avenue, it'd be far more exciting than just a reskinned map.
Well, if it wasn't going to feature some type of NPC enemy, why would it have its own playlist? Wouldn't you think they would just slide a haunted version of House into the casual playlist, and you would, you know, give it a little bit higher pick rate so that maybe 1 out of every 4 or 5 matches you're guaranteed to get on the haunted House, and you just play a normal casual match on a reskin version of House? The fact that it would have its own playlist, if that is in fact going to happen, then that would lead me to believe there's some different rules involved here, whether that's some Outbreak characters, whether it is, I don't know, something different.
I'd agree with you. I think that would make most sense. But saying that, you know, with only a week to go, you would think if they'd put a great deal of effort into it, they'd have already been sort of hyping it up and getting excitement levels up like they did with Outbreak, with the whole, do you remember the Rainbow Six Leaks website and all that? They haven't really done any of that, which makes me think, oh, maybe it is just a bit of a reskin. But like you say, from a commercial point of view, if they put a bit more effort into it, and if the plan is to get people to buy alpha packs, as I guess it most probably is, then I think that would be the route to go.
If I was in charge of the marketing for this, though, I would have been hesitant to release the information any earlier than at least today as well, because of, you think about how much gaming news is going on right now. You want this to have a splash. Maybe you want this to be kind of a mid-season pickup for the game, you know, to bump player count, to create some buzz. So if you release this within a couple of days of Black Ops 4 being released, is it going to have the effect that it would, you know, if you give it Black Ops 4 a little bit of time to slow down? You've also got Fortnite that's doing their Halloween seasonal stuff. So maybe it's just there's somebody back, the puppet master of hype is back there trying to figure out the best timing for this more than anything else. Here's a question I have for you guys. Are we going to see something similar to Sunsplash packs with this, do you think?
I'd expect so. There's been no indication for it, but obviously if you're going to take developers and use their time to create something, whether it's a map or an NPC mode or whatever it is, if you're going to do that, then I would expect that in the back end, there's going to be someone sitting in an office above everyone else and on a high floor that says, if you're going to do this, if you're going to spend your time making this, then also give us the opportunity to make money out of it. I would fully expect so.
Yeah.
Okay.
Go Go on, sorry.
Well, I mean, I was just going to say, okay, so last year they had 4 different operators. You could go and you could buy their bundle if that's what you wanted. Let's say they had the same thing this year, but it's locked behind 10 Halloween packs. I mean, is that cool?
At the end of the day, for me, it still always boils down to it's cosmetic and it's voluntary. If you want this, if you like them, if you think they're cool, you can do that. And we know that the way Ubisoft has done it up until now is there are no duplicates. You're not getting conned into buying more and more and more, and there's something that's getting you to spend far more than you normally would. Obviously, if you have the choice to buy bundles for individual operators, or even individual skins, just the gun skin, just the head skin, or whatever else it is, if you have that, you have that ability to pick and mix whatever you like. And yes, using packs that are random, even if they're not duplicate, will be a strategy to get people to buy the whole set rather than pick and mix. For me, yes, it's more of a sales tactic. It will sell more of those. But I personally, it doesn't affect me. It's still a choice. It's still optional. It's still cosmetic. You can go with it if you want, or you can leave it if you don't.
Yeah, I think you're right. Like, obviously, I do feel that I would prefer a system whereby you could say, I like that skin, I will buy that skin. But I think from a commercial standpoint, they probably make more money by forcing this kind of lottery. But as Rogue said, most people would probably buy them all anyway, and then you're guaranteed to get the skin you want. I can't see there being as many as they had in Outbreak, where they put so much of their sort of marketing into it. But I think it will go that avenue. And I think one interesting thing to consider too is this something that we're going to be seeing more of? And would it be something you would want to see in the game? So, for example, I think we were talking on in a Twitter DM, and I think, was it Bikini or someone said, there's so many events that they could do. For example, April Fools. That Christmas would make a really interesting event. Or throughout the year, there are so many different events they could do to celebrate what happens in different cultures or what have you, and incorporate that into the game. And it just gives people a reason to come back and play and unlock some skins. And I think that's another thing. With these events, it would be nice if you could also unlock some of the cosmetics just by achieving things in-game rather than just spending cash.
And I think that's what we're going to see, because we've already seen that there is going to be a Halloween-themed event, or not a Halloween-themed challenge that's going to be coming up. So I'm sure you'll be at least getting some kind of charm or something. And if there's going to be packs, we've seen this every time, whether it's Outbreak or Sunsplash or whatever you want to go with. If there's going to be packs, there's going to be a taster for free for everyone anyway. Right. So you're going to get something out of it one way or another, whether you want to spend money on it or not.
Well, and you think about last year with them having the 4 operators with the Halloween themed skins, nobody got anything for free there. Now, granted, you could spend renown on all those, I believe. So if you had enough renown saved up, you could do it that way for free. But you didn't just log on one day and have 2 packs that featured 2 of those items. So that's one positive that does come with the packs and the events, like the Sunsplash packs and stuff like that. And also, let's reiterate here, this is speculation. I mean, we don't. It could honestly just be a reskinned house that has a special playlist without any packs, and then they do the same thing. They have like a couple different operator bundles that you can buy. So we don't really know.
Yeah, and I think maybe sort of to close it off, looping back around to what you mentioned, like whether it would be a dedicated playlist or whether it would just be something they sneak in and it will come up as a surprise. I think the way that it's already been leaked and the way it's already kind of been announced and probably will be officially announced at some point during this week or certainly before next week, I think with that in mind, that kind of lessens the impact if it had been a surprise. Imagine if you just go into playing normally and all of a sudden you're getting a Halloween-themed map. That would have been an amazing surprise to happen. I think that could have been really impactful. But of course, you're not going to have that by announcing it, which makes me think that we're probably more likely going to see a dedicated little playlist that they've already been using for the last 2 seasons, I think, to show off the new maps every time.
Yep, I agree with you. I think it will be a dedicated playlist. It's what the leak showed, and it gives them the opportunity to do more of these types of event in future. So would you guys welcome more of these in the future then?
It depends on what we see. I think,
yeah.
I mean, we had the Sunsplash packs recently, and they're fun enough, but kind of a non-event for most people who aren't going to be buying any of them, who just got a couple of free ones. And it's like, okay, yeah, they're nice and fun. And now I have 1 set of trousers for Legion and 1 headgear for IQ, and that's all I'm going to get out of it. It's not really that much of an impact. Whereas if you have a dedicated little playlist, something that's been changed, even if it's only cosmetic changes or a few little Easter eggs or fun bits, like you come up to the front door and, I don't know, some kind of scary thing pops up that has been set up that some people sometimes do for Halloween. So different little bits and bobs, not just a reskin of the map, but actually adding little things in that will make you sort of react in surprise and wonder. I think that's great fun, and I think that will bring a lot of people back in, maybe sort of, as we were saying, across the mid part of the season, to just come and have a look and rejuvenate that sort of lull that we get in the middle of the season, well, almost every season, really.
Yeah, I welcome it as well. You know, one of the things that this stuff does for me, and I know everybody's different, but for me, this stuff reminds me that I'm playing a video game and not just a ranked playlist. Sometimes I can get so grindy on, like, I want to hit plat 1 this season. You know, I want to hit ranked every day. I want to win. I want to win. I want to sweating. I'm on the grind. And an event like this is nice change of pace to remind me, like, hey, I'm playing a video game. I'm here to have fun. You know, Outbreak did a good job of that, I thought, you know, to just show a different side of Rainbow Six Siege. And I really enjoyed it for that purpose.
That's actually a really good point, especially Rainbow Six is possibly one of the worst games that I've seen personally for how competitive it really does get. And if you're not at least mid-platinum or higher or diamond, then something's going wrong and you have to avoid going into gold at all costs, even though gold is sort of the average. Low gold is sort of the midpoint of the skill distribution, but if you're not platinum, you're not even worth talking to or about. And it's a weird culture of how competitive it does get, even outside of competitive play, outside of Pro League, outside of other leagues. And yeah, I think that aspect is not something I'd considered, but it's something I'd certainly welcome. For sure. Anything else about that? I'm guessing we'll hear the news coming out this week. So
should be this week, yeah. Surely it's got to be. It's got to be.
It's about time, I think. So yeah.
By the time this goes live on your channel, Rogue, it may already be announced. You know, that's something to mention. But
oh god, yeah, I better get this one out quickly. All right, let's move on a little bit. I think something I saw you, Flank, talking about on Twitter maybe is Black Ops 4 and specifically Blackout, and it was what's the name of the fellow again?
Battle Nonsense.
Exactly, Battle Nonsense. He's put out a video. He usually tests the server capabilities of various multiplayer games when they come out, when they get updated. He's done a lot of work with Rainbow Six as the servers have been updated throughout the lifespan of the game. And he's gone and tested Black Ops 4 in terms of Blackout and the multiplayer. And he's discovered that these servers run at a 20 hertz tick rate, which means 20 updates per second on the server side, which is abysmally low compared to what a modern, especially a AAA shooter, should be able to do nowadays. So what are your thoughts on that?
Well, a couple of things. First of all, one interesting aspect to the story is that in the beta, okay, first of all, multiplayer and Blackout both run at 20 hertz. So there's no difference between the two. In the beta, however, multiplayer was running at 60 and Blackout was running at 20. He tested the beta and then he tested the full game. So what they did was they actually downgraded the multiplayer tick rate for the full release of the game. Okay. Also, since this story has broke, Treyarch has made a statement very casually, and they said, we basically, what they said was, when we launched the game, we wanted to place a priority on stability. So they're basically saying the reason that the tick rate's this low is because we wanted to make sure we had a stable launch, and we're going to raise the tick rate over time. They didn't say those exact words, but that's the impression that you get. They're going to continue optimizing is I think the words that they use. So I fully expect that multiplayer eventually will get bumped back up to 60. But yeah, it's pretty sad. It's pretty disappointing, I guess is the right way to say it. Now, battle royale games, it would be understandable if it was Blackout was 20 hertz. It still wouldn't be Blackout. That would still be lagging behind where PUBG and Fortnite both are, but it would be more understandable because that's 100 people on a big map. It's a big server load. It's understandable that you might not be able to run 60 hertz on that. But for multiplayers, 5v5
on small maps.
Yes, what is going on now? The thinking is that they didn't want people playing multiplayer and then hopping into Blackout and being like, dude, this is a completely different experience. But why do you go that way? Why do you go the way of making the whole experience garbage instead of like it's so weird. So yeah, I think it's pretty disappointing. I think it's probably the one chink in the armor that Black Ops 4 has had to this because it's been a very widely well received game, and it's disappointing that this is the case. And here's from in-game experiences, where I've experienced it is anything fast moving. So if somebody is crouch sliding, they're very hard to hit because you're not getting an update on where their hitbox actually is. You're getting 1/3 of the updates that you normally would in a AAA shooter. If somebody's on an ATV in Blackout and they're zooming past you close, good luck trying to land a bullet because that is going to be so out of sync. So the peeker's advantage is real. And to bring it back to Siege, because that's where most of our audience is. Honestly, it's a reminder to how small the margins are in Siege, because if I guarantee you, if we went to 20 hertz servers in Siege today, by tomorrow, without any vital nonsense, without any study officially done, you would have a Reddit that would be filled with people showing clips of how they got ripped off, how this is a headshot, something's wrong with the servers, the hit detection is garbage. Because the margins in Siege are so small, and in Blackout and Call of Duty, even though you're playing on smaller maps and stuff, it's not as noticeable.
Siege is an interesting comparison, though, because I'm pretty sure Siege launched with 30 hertz.
Yes,
tick rate. And in fact,
up until Operation Health, I believe.
Yeah, there's been a few false dawns with them saying that they're aiming for the 60 hertz and then not quite getting there. I'm not sure. Perhaps they are. I think they are there now. Yeah. And Battlefield 4 launched. For sure. Battlefield 4 launched with a 10 hertz tick rate, and then they had the community test environment, which is quite similar. If you haven't played Battlefield 4, it's really quite similar to Siege's test server, I suppose, where they got it up to where it is, where I believe it's 60 hertz. It may even mirror your FPS, I believe. I'm not 100% on that. So I feel to some degree that is achievable, what Activision have come out and said, that they could go back and, improve the network architecture behind the scenes or what have you. And, obviously I'm not a techie, but I do feel like that is achievable because we have seen that in other games. And to some degree, I can understand why they're struggling with that, because COD isn't exactly known for having large-scale multiplayer games. So perhaps that is something they've struggled a little bit with. So I would give them a little bit of leeway with regards to that, but I'm sure that they've got the know-how and the people there, but perhaps they just couldn't get it done in time for launch. But over the next few months, I reckon they'll get that back up to a more reasonable rate. But like I say, 20 hertz, it is low by today's standards. I think 60 hertz is about, the kind of standard, isn't it? 60 updates per second. But I it's better than what Battlefield 4 launched with the 10 hertz.
Yeah, that's ages ago, though. First of all, and
2013.
Okay,
that's 5 years
ago.
Yeah,
that's people were still playing
the previous generation of consoles.
Exactly.
I mean, that was a split title. Yeah, it was
2015. No, it was 2013, wasn't it?
Battlefield was launched on PS3 and PS4. That's how long ago it's been. So you think about that.
So that's the first point I'd make. And I think in terms of it being kind of okay, I think we need to sort of differentiate between the multiplayer in Call of Duty and Blackout, the Battle Royale mode. In the multiplayer, when you're in really tight, close-range battles, when moving around corners, because what are the problems? Well, you have the problems of peaker advantage, because you have to think about sort of the information exchange, something that happens on your opponent's computer, then has to go via his internet connection, taking the latency into consideration, has to get onto the server. The server then has to go through its update and its tick, which may be up to, if the information comes in right after one tick has taken place, maybe at 20 hertz up to 50 milliseconds before it updates on the server. Then it sends the information to you at the latency of your internet connection. So what you're doing is it's increasing the time of processing something that happens on one computer, gets sent through the servers to yours. That then causes problems with certainly Pika's advantage, especially in Call of Duty, where you can crouch slide like a maniac. You just go on your knees and you fly across the floor like it's ice. You can jump around corners, which is just such a useful tactic. And that's why it is such a useful tactic, because you can basically jump around a corner and kill someone before they have even a chance to react, irrespective of their reaction time and their aim as a player. And there's that, but also, even beyond that, when you have high fire rate weapons, you can actually fire multiple weapons in the 50 milliseconds it takes for the server to update once. And what it then goes is, okay, 2 bullets have hit in this time, or even 3 bullets, depending on the fire rate. And they will then, on your end, when the server pushes the information to your computer or your console, they'll all arrive at the same time. And Battle Nonsense usually refers to these as super bullets. When you're suddenly, and that's why when you die in Call of Duty, usually the experience is that out of nowhere, it's just and you hit with 1,000,000 bullets and you're dead. But on the flip side, when you're shooting someone, it feels like you have to pump quite a number of bullets at them before they die. They don't usually react, but it's just that sort of desync in terms of the experience you have as the shooter versus the experience you have when you're being shot at. And yeah, I think definitely for the multiplayer, where everything is close range, where everything is fast-paced, it needs to be quicker. When you're dealing with longer ranges in Battle Royale, and I think most of the gunfights are sort of mid to long range most of the time, it's not as much of a problem. But still, obviously, when you're fighting in a building, in a house, around a building, once you get close range, you start having that problem as well. So I understand that it's maybe not as much of an impact for a Battle Royale mode, and you can get away with a little bit more. But it can still be very annoying once you get really close. So yes, I do hope that they manage to make good on their promises there and update that.
Let me add something to what you just spoke of, because you broke down that really well as far as how it actually impacts you as a player. But another thing with the slower tick rate of 20 hertz compared to 60 hertz is if you happen to drop a packet. So you were mentioning like a high fire rate weapon there. You may fire 3 or 4 bullets before an update. And if you happen to drop that packet, which happens, then that's a much bigger piece of information than if you're getting a 60 hertz update. You know what I mean? You take something and you divide it by 60, you take something divided by 20. Divided by 20 is going to have much bigger pieces. And if you drop that piece, it's a much bigger piece of the puzzle. It's a lot more information that you're missing out on, and it could, lead to really frustrating gunfights. So I think that's another factor there as well. As far as that's how I understand it working. If you have packet loss combined with a slower tick rate.
Yeah, definitely something to be avoided. In a way, I understand how they want to prioritize certainly stability at launch over trying to get it right.
It's a AAA title that's released annually, man. Come on, get it together. Like, you're telling me you can't do it by now?
Do you think it's financial? Do you think it's
No.
perhaps they would need more servers, or there's some financial reason? What do you think is the?
Do you pay more as a game developer? Do you pay? Because, I mean, most of them don't run their own servers, right? It's usually a third party, Microsoft or Amazon, or who knows who is running these servers. Do you pay more for faster servers, for higher tick rate, or does it even make a financial difference in terms
but
of that.
servers are just machines, and there's only so much load you can obviously put on those machines. So maybe if they have higher tick rate, then they need more machines for the amount of people playing to process all that data. So that's what I'm thinking. Maybe it's a sort of commercial decision, not by the actual design team, but by the people holding the purse strings.
COD World War II did have a really bad launch. It was pretty much broken for the first, I want to say, like 48 hours that COD World War II launched. So they may, and COD World War II did have 60 hertz servers, does have 60 hertz servers. So it may be something where like, we're not doing that again. We'll launch at 20 hertz. That's what caused us to be unstable on COD World War II. So we'll launch at 20 hertz and we'll bump it up a month after release or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to take a game seriously, the tick rate is obviously really important. And I mean, like you say, you know, the comparisons I made to BF4 and that being from 2013, in this day and age, 2018 going on 2019, it's one of the most important things for any gamer, if they're going to play an FPS game, to know that there is going to be a good sort of update rate, a good tick rate, because otherwise it can just become such a frustrating game. And we're seeing all too often so many of our, you know, favorite games that come out, even PUBG, you know, Battlefield, as we mentioned, Siege, have come out with less than ideal tick rates, but then have worked on it as the game has become a success.
Yeah, I've had a comment in my chat just now saying that most data centers charge extra for faster or less restricted bandwidths. Also, multiple servers on the same nodes will suffer more from higher traffic than 5 different servers on separate nodes. There's that. I'm not going to pretend I understand all of that. I understand the first part, which is charging more for less restricted bandwidth. Okay, yeah, if that's a thing, I obviously am not sure about that without looking into it more. But maybe then it is. Maybe you're right. Maybe it is a financial thing apart from a stability question. All right. At this stage, I think, let's move on in the agenda. A lot of people in my live streams and in comments under my videos have been asking me about Red Dead Redemption. So maybe really just sort of a quick thought on what our thoughts are of this game. Are we looking forward to it? Because for me, it's a real point of conflict. It really hurts me every time I think about it. I just get this pain in my chest. So maybe I'll let you guys go first. Your thoughts on the upcoming Red Dead launch.
I'm going to play it, but I'm probably not going to cover it on YouTube or live stream it or anything like that. It's going to be one of those games a bit like Football Manager that I just sort of play in my own time when I have a minute. That's what I'm going to do with Red Dead Redemption. I just don't feel like it's the kind of content that would go down particularly well on my channel, which is mostly Siege and some other FPS games. I did play the original. I did enjoy it. So, you know, all these years later, it does make sense to play the second one, which I believe is actually a prequel.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's my thoughts on it. Nothing really more to add on it. When's the launch date for Red Dead?
Thursday or Friday, right? So it'd be like the 25th, I want to say.
Oh my god.
So are you planning to stream it then, Rogue, or?
I don't know. You see, I've not touched a console for gaming purposes in years now. I'm still on the PS3, really. So if this game launched on PC, I'd be super excited because I have very fond memories of the original as well. I, in fact, broke my PlayStation 3 playing Red Dead Redemption, the original, because I fried the processor. I gave it a yellow light of death. So that's how much I liked Red Dead. A lot of people played the single player. I played that to death, all the way to unlocking the unicorn horse and the 4 horses of the apocalypse that you could get, and all of those weird and wonderful things that took you into all kinds of challenges all around the map. I basically 100%ed that game, and then I played hours upon hours upon hours of the multiplayer, which wasn't even that fleshed out. It was okay, but it wasn't that amazing. So I put a lot of time into the original Red Dead, and I really, really loved it. And I would be super excited about it if I could play it on my platform of choice, a platform that I know is set up, that I know I can stream from, that I know I can record from, that I know will be able to run the game at the best possible quality. Rather than...
Do you have an Elgato?
No. See, I don't have anything. So that's...
So...
I'll admit straightforward. Obviously, I could get a console and I could play it, but if I do that, even then, I have that sort of that thing at the back of my head that just tells me you're wasting time by playing a game just for your private enjoyment and getting nothing out of it, nothing for your YouTube channel. You're not even able to stream it. I have this guilt that is crushing me just thinking about playing a video game and not getting anything out of it, which is...
I feel that. Like, a lot of the time, I don't particularly play too many games other than sort of Siege or what have you, because I do get that guilt of I'm playing a game and I could actually be making a YouTube video in that time, or playing Siege, or doing something a bit more productive than playing a game. But I think if you're a YouTuber in the sort of gaming sector, then you need to be able to enjoy games too, and you need to be able to look forward to games. So you should be able to afford yourself a bit of cut-off time. I'm not saying you should be playing, 10 hours a day and neglecting your YouTube, which is your full-time job. But I think it would be reasonable to say, look, I'm going to play, 3 hours on Sunday and a few hours during the week, because you should be able to go ahead and enjoy gaming, and you'll probably enjoy making your YouTube content if you've had that time to let your hair down and not feel like every time you're playing a game, you have to hit record and you have to struggle to get a bit of gameplay to put on your channel. So I think you should just afford yourself that pleasure of enjoying games like everybody else does.
I agree wholeheartedly. And honestly, I put out a tweet actually saying that for Red Dead, I'm not going to stream it. I'm not going to create any content. I'm going to lock myself into a room and just lose myself in that game like I used to. And that came about because I was thinking... kind of like you, Rogue. I was like, I'm really excited for Red Dead. I'm gonna be playing it on console. There's a couple of things going on where it was just the timing was right for me to finally get a PS4 Pro. So I got the PS4 Pro and I'm like, whoa, I could play Red Dead in 4K, or close to it. So I was like, I can get a 4K monitor and play it like that and just really just straight geek out on Red Dead and just like sit here and just play it at a graphic setting I've never experienced before and I've always been interested in. But then I started thinking, I was like, but I can't stream in 4K. I won't be able to capture it in 4K. I don't have a 4K Elgato. And it just started this train of thought where I was like, no, I want to play this game. I want to play it in 4K and I'm just going to play it and have fun. And it's a shame that, because I feel you completely. And I think it's something we have to get over, because sometimes I think we don't enjoy games as much as we could because we're, instead of thinking this moment is awesome and this game is so much fun, we're thinking how does this create, how am I going to create content on this? I've experienced that with Blackout some, that, I'm having a lot of fun in Blackout and I've enjoyed streaming it. But at the same time, you're used to having 100, 200 viewers and you look over and you got 19. And it's discouraging a little bit. And that kind of skews, am I having fun playing this game? Yeah. Because, you kind of get a little bit of a bad feeling. Even though you're having a ton of fun playing, if you just shut off the stream and just were hanging out with your buddies, playing Blackout and having a blast and weren't worrying about content, you'd be having more fun. Yeah, and your opinion of the game might be higher.
Yeah, guilt is the way I describe that feeling. The guilt of if I was streaming Rainbow Six now, I could get 10 times the amount of viewers than I can get on the game that I'm currently playing. So yeah, there's all of that. And I mean, I feel a little bit cheated by them not putting out the PC version at the same time, because that's even not considering anything about me making video games my life. I kind of wish I still could play on the platform of my choice that will provide better quality. And I just wonder, was it incompetence that they couldn't get those all aligned and ready for this at the same time? Or is it cynical? Did they see with GTA 5 that they could sell millions of copies on console and then a year and a half later or whatever it was, release on PC and get a lot of the console players to buy a second copy and then go into the PC with all of the features that came with that and were added to that? Is it just a marketing ploy of purposefully leaving this out till later? I mean, if at least I knew when it was coming, then I'd be able to make an informed decision. Am I going to just buy a brand new console, even like you flanked, a brand new monitor to play this one game? Or can I just wait for it to come out? But if it's going to be a year and a half, well, rip that, right? So
yeah,
that's something that is just an added factor that I feel kind of annoyed about.
Yeah, that is annoying, this sort of staggered release. I do wonder, is there any sort of news as to why they've done that then? Have they come out and said, have they even confirmed it will come out on PC at a later date?
I think they're saying 2019. 2019 sometime.
They do that.
But is it early or late 2019?
Yeah.
I'm not sure. They've got something going on with PlayStation. PlayStation's marketing. You know, when you look at a Red Dead commercial at the end, it says PlayStation the best place to play, I believe. It's not a PlayStation exclusive, obviously, but there is, you know, they're in cahoots.
I've seen something 30 days early access for some kind of content added on. I think
for the DLC.
I think something like that for PlayStation, I do believe, off the top of my head. So yeah, there's that as well. I know it's coming to PC, irrespective of official confirmation. I know that someone went through LinkedIn and looked at the developers' CVs on LinkedIn, and people were listing having worked on Red Dead Redemption, PS4, Xbox One, and PC.
Yeah. So
it's confirmed it's coming, but no one knows when, no one knows how and what, and yeah,
on the subject of Red Dead, did you guys catch the little news story that kind of created a little bit of a buzz? One of the head honchos over there at the studio that's working on Red Dead, he put out a tweet or something saying, we're working 100-hour weeks in order to, you know, up to release of Red Dead Redemption 2, kind of like bragging about it. And it created kind of a backlash, like, dude, like, why are you working your people for 100 hours straight? Like, that's not something to brag about. That just shows that you're unprepared and that you don't care about your employees, really. And I kind of took it that way too. And it's an interesting conversation, like the expectations that we as gamers place on developers. Like, you released Black Ops 4 with 20 hertz servers. How could you do this? You know, like it's kind of, sometimes you have to take a step back and look and say, hey, you know, like these guys are people too. 100-hour weeks. If he's being realistic there, that's a long. How many hours are in a week? I mean, do the math there for me. I mean, that's what, 720.
Let's calculate that. Let me get the calculator.
That would be 3/4 of every hour of that week, at least, probably would be spent at working.
There's 168 hours
so
in a week.
Right around 3/4, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
It's a phenomenon in the gaming industry called crunch, and it's where when a game is coming towards the end before release and there's still a lot to do, it's expected of a lot of the developers that they're going to work some crazy overtime in the week leading up to launch. And going back to my example a moment ago, which you guys didn't like because it was from 2013, but it's the only one I know of. I remember when Battlefield 4 came out, half the DICE team that had been working on it, and I remember this really vividly, went on a holiday for a month or two. And if you think about it, they'd probably been working their absolute bloody socks off in the month or two before launch.
You don't have to go that far back even. Battlefield 5 must be in the same situation, because we know the launch date was in the past. Was, I think, was sometime last week. The launch date for Battlefield 5, the original launch date, has already passed. They're already in delay. They had to push it. It messed up their entire marketing strategy, had a horrible effect. You bet your life that they're working ridiculous hours. Absolutely.
Well, and Battlefield 4 was really buggy at launch. Like, so did they leave and like they're like, this, and like all of our employees are on holiday because we've been working 100-hour weeks for the last month.
It's a weird phenomenon, isn't it? I mean, you know, because obviously if you're an artist or something working on a game, that is your passion to do that. But I mean, to work, if you do your passion for 100-hour weeks for a couple of months, I'm sure you wouldn't feel too passionate about it by the end of that little period there.
It's an unforgiving industry, and you think about what happens after a game launches. Many times behind the scenes, half of the developer teams, they get either certainly let go from the project and then possibly reabsorbed in other parts of the studio on other games, or maybe different studios under the same publisher, or maybe they get let go altogether. You're done with this project, now you're looking for a new work. Project-based work like that it's demanding and quite unforgiving, certainly on the developers that are actually doing the work. Yeah, so I don't envy them at all. Absolutely.
On another note, apparently DICE Stockholm have been losing staff because I saw it on a news website the other day. There's some other Ubisoft have opened up a studio like close by, and apparently some of them have been going to Ubisoft and other studios. So that's and there was something in the news article about, I think, don't quote me on this, but something to do with they were a little bit, the way the whole sort of Battlefront 2 debacle went down, and then they had to go back and redo all the progression system. I think it was a bit of a thankless task for some of the staff there, from what I can tell.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, and I can confirm that just from people I follow on Twitter. I've seen quite a number of them move to different studios doing different jobs
DICE
now.
employees.
Yep, specifically. Yeah, that's how it goes, isn't it? So let's swing things back to Rainbow Six Siege for a little bit before we move on to Pro League. One thing that came out this week that maybe many people have seen, potentially on my channel as well, is that we now know how the muzzle attachments in Rainbow Six Siege work specifically. I'm going to bring sort of this image, which is on Reddit, which someone very kindly posted on Reddit. I'm going to bring that up on my screen. And basically, I don't want to rehash the analysis that I did in my video. If anyone wants to go back and look at that, if you haven't seen it yet, it is there. But what I do want to quickly do, especially with the both of you, is have a little bit of a chat about what muzzle attachments you've been favoring up until now. If you've seen these revelations, has that changed how you approach it at all? Maybe Flanked, if you want to give us a bit of an insight first.
Yeah, I've always kind of had the mindset, in general, semi-auto weapons get muzzle brake. If I'm in doubt on a full auto weapon, put flash hider, because I've always felt like flash hider does two things. It reduces. I'm giving you my my impression of what they did leading up to your video, because I think this is one of, it was a great video, by the way. I think this is one of the most misunderstood topics in all of Siege, and so it was really nice for you to get the information straight from the horse's mouth. I certainly commend whoever gave you that information, working with you, and you for making that video. But my impression before your video was that flash hider reduces recoil in small bursts and also reduces the muzzle flash. So I always felt like if it was a weapon that had that I saw myself burst firing with a lot, and that I didn't know that I necessarily needed compensator on, then I was going to throw flash hider on. And then compensator was for like really high fire rate weapons. Like, for example, the compensator weapons that I use a lot. Well, this isn't a higher fire rate weapon, but I use compensator on Jaeger's carbine.
Yep.
And the reason for that is I noticed myself with Jaeger a lot. I'm getting in gunfights where it is kind of as a roamer, like I am going full auto. It's not small bursts with Jaeger a lot. However, with Mira, she does have a high fire rate weapon, but I find myself using flash hider maybe because whenever I'm shooting around a Mira, it is kind of just like, bzz, 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 you know, and so that's kind of two outliers there. But for the most part, if it's really high fire rate, like Ella's SMG, I'm definitely using compensator on. And outside of that, I use flash hider probably more than compensator, I would say.
Pete, what are your thoughts?
I haven't seen your video, but looking at this now, it makes sense to me, because I'd spent maybe at the start of this month, I spent possibly 40, 50 hours working on a video, which I gave up on, analyzing the attachments for a, by the way, Dustin in my chat was asking what that video was from. I may have mentioned it in a previous podcast, but this is the one. So I was looking into this, and basically, I noticed that, and I've made a video on this before, and you'll recall this, Rogue, that other than the compensator, both the flash hider and the muzzle brake seem to recenter your sights quicker. So obviously they're better for sort of anything that's single fire, whether that be a sidearm or a DMR, like Frank was saying. But the reason I gave up on this video is because I was like, how can I didn't know how. I got so far into analyzing it, and I just couldn't find out how to convey this this data in a video form. So I was just like, I've done all these hours, and it's just like I'm actually going to throw it to the. And do you remember I was talking to you about this video?
Yeah.
So this is really interesting to see this now. So as I look at it, I'm looking. So I take it that's the suppressor, flash hider.
Yes, flash hider, compensator, muzzle brake, and long barrel, extended barrel. So
in my analysis, I felt like the compensator would have been my third choice from what I was looking at, and it was obviously something you were going to use for, you know, long bursts, like half a magazine. You might want to use the compensator, and then obviously then that leaves you the flash hider and the muzzle brake. And I felt that the muzzle brake was the better of the two attachments because they had a similar on all the weapons. I looked at lots of different automatic weapons, and I noticed that it clustered the first 2 or 3 shots together really well, and then recentered the sight. So for burst firing, I feel like the muzzle brake is probably the best attachment, but the flash hider was a close second. And you know, this is without pulling up all my data and all the videos that I've put together in the background. So that's how I felt. Muzzle brake, flash hider, compensator.
Yeah, makes perfect sense. And I think sort of maybe to give a short summary of what I used to do before figuring all this out, or before being given this information after asking for it. For me, I was always muzzle brake on just about everything that can take it. Anything, whether it was single fire, certainly, no question. Pistols, DMRs, no question. The muzzle brake is the thing to go for. But even on other guns, I usually put the muzzle brake if it was available, simply because it is so powerful at mitigating that first shot recoil. And something that I've seen or looked at more closely since then is that a lot of the weapons in Rainbow Six, especially after the recoil update we've had in Operation Grim Sky, will have a very extreme first shot recoil. 2.5 times that of regular recoil after that. So there's an immediate jump after the first shot, and then you start to see this sort of general recoil, which sometimes widens out more and more. For some guns, it goes off to the side. For some guns, it stays relatively centered. It always depends. But almost all, certainly, assault rifles have such a strong first shot recoil that makes controlling it harder, I would say, because you have this immediate jump which you have to compensate for, whether you're pushing forward on your control stick or pulling down on your mouse, and then the recoil changes and becomes more even. So that's why I think in retrospect the muzzle brake in my previous tests, when I didn't know this exact information, always ended up being my favorite. And why even in playing, ever since the muzzle brake has been introduced, I've basically had it on all guns. Now with this new knowledge, I have been switching up a little bit. Specifically what I'm looking for is guns that don't have a strong jump, that don't have very strong first shot recoil, in which case maybe the compensator can work better, especially if you have guns like, for instance, Ella's Scorpion, or, for instance, Mira's Vector, which do, after the second or third bullet, start widening out significantly, start going left to right an awful lot. Because if you're looking for left to right recoil management, the compensator is the #1 best in dealing with that. So I have spent a little time going through various guns and reevaluating, and I'm being a bit more nuanced now. But yeah, I think in general, if you're looking for a quick solution, something that manages the first shot recoil, like for instance the muzzle brake or the flash hider as a sort of in-between step, are the ones that have always worked and will continue to work. But yeah, I thought that was maybe interesting to dive into just a little bit.
Oh yeah, definitely. Like Frank said, I think this is really a very, a key topic to discuss, because I think when you read the in-game descriptions, Rogue, it's not particularly obvious what the attachments do. So it is important that people in the community look into this. On my stream, I'm just putting up some of the images that I was working on, but I do feel that if you are, you know, someone that does sort of burst quite confidently, then I would say probably the muzzle brake or the flash hider. If you're someone that does sort of tend to, you know, mag dump or, you know, go a bit mad, then maybe you would want to use the compensator. But personally, I'm going to be using the muzzle brake from this point forward. Of course, there are some weapons where you don't have that option. I think the SMG-11, I think that only has the compensator. Maybe does it have the heavy barrel, the long barrel, or
yes,
the extended barrel?
Yeah.
So on something like that, I will stick with the compensator. Yeah.
I think it also has the flash hider as an option, which especially the SMG-11 has a very, very tall recoil diamond, so it doesn't actually branch out to the sides as much, but it has extreme vertical recoil, where if you're short bursting, the flash hider can still be a very good option for sure. And there are other guns. I think, is it IQ's machine gun, the G3 variant there? That doesn't have access to the muzzle brake either. So there are weapons that don't have it at this stage, when of course you'll then have to pick between the others. Goody, are we ready to move on to some Pro League stuff?
Sure. Let's do it.
Yeah, let's get that up. I'm going to bring this up on screen now. 1 second, here we go. So let's maybe start out with last week's games briefly, very briefly, because I think there were some interesting things there, some maybe unexpected, and some important outcomes that will affect how everything goes forward. So let me start out with North America. We had Noble play Cloud9. Cloud9 won 6-4. Then Mouse beat Space Station 6-3. SK lost against EG in a resounding 6-1 defeat, and Rogue beat Obey 6-3. So I think EG-SK there is the match that was maybe not surprising. Obviously, EG is one of the best teams in the world, but SK had been the dominant leader going into the midway point for North America this season, and they've slipped since then, and they've put themselves in a little bit of peril. They could have used this to cement their position in certainly number 2 spot, but missed that opportunity, which has left the door open, and we'll see that when we go into the standings. Anything else that surprised you guys? Anything interesting there?
So many storylines in that matchup, EG versus SK. First of all, EG's former coach Bacon is now with SK, so that was one of the storylines there. They played this match on Villa. EG bans Villa. The EG doesn't play Villa, and it was a counter strat. They used that against SK. SK never. I can almost guarantee you that SK did not prepare for Villa, and EG stratted for it. They completely. I don't know. It was just crazy. It was crazy. They went on there and beat them 6-1. It wasn't even remotely close, and that was crazy. But C9 winning, it cemented their place in 6th, I believe. I don't think there's any possible way that they can get relegated at this point. I'm pretty sure that they're locked in there, which is, we talked in the last episode about how, we don't want to see anybody get relegated, but particularly an org with the clout of C9. We want to see them continue to stay in Pro League. They just got their team house, and it's nice to know that they will be not only at the Invitational, but they will be in next season. So those are the big things there.
Yeah, I think, whoa, goodness me. Someone's got an earthquake in the background. One more interesting thing I think as well is Space Station kind of putting themselves out of contention for that 2nd place, for the opportunity to go to the LAN finals by losing against Mouse. Somewhat unexpected, and obviously a shame for them, because now they're out of the chance to go to Brazil. Speaking of South America, let's go over to LATAM and see how they did. Team 1 beat Black Dragon 6-4. Pain lost to Ninjas in Pajamas 2-6. Team Liquid lost against FaZe 3-6, and Bootcamp won against Immortals 6-2. Interesting outcomes. Immortals, again, a team that at the halfway point had been the absolutely dominant team in this region, slipped badly during the second half of the season, losing against Bootcamp quite badly. Team Liquid kind of let their opportunity to cement their ticket to the LAN finals slip away as well by losing, although they lose against FaZe, who are now the dominant winner of that region. So maybe not that unexpected, maybe not something to feel that badly about. Team 1 beating Black Dragons is good for them because, again, it gives them kind of a shot at getting into LAN as well.
Yeah, nothing really that I want to add there. Like you said, just a couple teams missing out on an opportunity to really do themselves some good. So it comes down to the last week.
Yeah. In fact, actually, I'm going to have to correct myself there. I've just talked a bunch of nonsense. Team 1, mathematically, they can still draw to get second place, but because of the additional countback and the additional mini-league sort of deciders, they can't actually win that. We'll see that when we get in the standings, so I'm just going to have to correct myself there. It's good that they won, but it's a little bit too little, a little bit too late. Let's look at EU then. Interesting outcomes here. Millennium had a very close match with Chaos. That was actually quite exciting to watch. Chaos slipping sort of at the last moment and Millennium just about nabbing the win, and it was very important for them. G2, the very first loss for the entire double-length season against their former organization, Penta. Vitality lose against Supremacy, which is quite interesting to see that Supremacy finally, in the second-to-last match in a double-length season, get their very first win. Again, too little too late. And the big game in this last week was Team Secret Mocket, and whoever won there would have made great strides towards and maybe even cemented their position to go to the LAN finals. Now that they've drawn, it's opened everything up again, and we'll see that in a second.
Yeah, that Team Secret versus Mocket match was so entertaining. Like that was just great to watch. A lot of speculation was G2 trying whenever they played Penta. I mean, I can almost guarantee you that they weren't showing any cutting edge strats. But those guys always want to win, especially going up against their old orgs. So I don't think that they were throwing by any means, but certainly probably wasn't their best performance of the season. Going to be really interesting to see how this plays out. Again, it comes down to the last week for that second place spot in EU as well.
Yeah, a lot of people have been asking me, oh, what are your thoughts on G2 losing for the first time? The thing we always see, especially when teams already have their position cemented going into a LAN, is that they want to keep their powder dry. Because, I mean, that's basically the job. You have on a team, you have the 5 players, but beyond that, you have at least 1 or 2 coaches and analysts and all goodness knows who else. And those people, their main job, their dedication is to study the VODs of the games of their competitors, and they have like these huge folders. What strategies do they use on defense? Which are their favorite defensive locations to play? What kind of makeup in terms of the operators do they have when they're playing attack? Where do they attack from? What do they use? It's something that the teams pay a lot of attention to. So when we start going towards a LAN event where it's all to play for, where it comes down to sort of a knockout-style tournament, and they have to make sure they win every match from a certain stage onwards after they go through the initial group stages, it's really important for teams to keep their newest, their freshest, their most the strategies with the most potential, that they keep those secret as best as possible. And that's, I think, what we've been seeing with G2, not just this last match against Penta, which they lost 6-4, but even in the draw the week before that. I just think they weren't playing cohesively as a team. They were kind of running off doing their own thing. And we mentioned it last week. And it's not something cynical. It's not that they don't care anymore. It's more strategizing for the future.
Yeah, I mean, they've got nothing to play for, have they? They've just led it from the start, just...
Exactly.
Been so dominant in the region. I do wonder, though, if you're part of a team, winning does become a bit of a habit. So there is I get from a strategic point of view why you might not want to reveal, like you say, keep your powder dry, what your tactics are, what you're working on. But I also feel there's a lot to be said for continuing in your winning ways, because it builds up a persona, it builds up a psychology around being unbeatable. And then to be beaten, it just shows teams that you can be beaten. And there's sort of some psychological play in there, I feel, both from an opponent's standpoint, but also if you're in that team, if you've got that winning feeling and then suddenly you take a loss, and like you say, it's not necessarily because they've gone out to lose, but because they're perhaps not using their strategies that they're trying to keep.
Yeah, like they're going to have to make a turnaround going into LAN. They're going to have to change their mindset from kind of let's go out and have some fun to let's be serious now, and they need to make that switch successfully. So there is a risk to it. But yeah, it's a balance. They have to choose. Do we show our strategies beforehand, or do we keep those secret and then deal with possibly the psychological impact of losing a game, showing the opponents we can lose and all that? Definitely good points for sure.
I'm convinced.
It's a balance, I think. You make good points. And I think certainly, obviously, I can't say what the right choice is, but I can say the choice they have made, and they've obviously gone with let's just play and let's not show our actual strategies.
Seems to be, yeah, I'd agree with you. It seems at least like that's something they've done, and you wouldn't put it past their IGL to do that, would you?
No, absolutely.
Do you know what? I was just browsing these tables before we came on today. Do you know what? Do you mind if we just have a quick look at the LATAM table? Would that be okay?
The table?
Standings? The standings?
Yeah, the standings.
Yeah, I was going to go over the standings for all of them anyway, but let's start with LATAM. Go on then.
Okay, so we've all been talking for a while now about how dominant G2 have been, right? And they have been. Look, they have just taken the region by storm. But when you look at FaZe, it's like, man, they are so dominant in their region. It's absolutely unbelievable. I think they've won the last 9 games, and overall they've only lost 2 games all season. And now, obviously, their roster is incredible. Players who have been around since, forever, like Cameraman, Astro, and Mav. But I'm really thinking that these might be the teams to back come the final in Brazil, because they're going to have the home crowd advantage.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it's sort of been a tale of two halves with them. If you look at the first season, all of their losses and their one tie they had came in the first half of the season. They managed to win 4 games, but they lost 2 and had 1 draw. Their dominance didn't actually start until the second part of the season, which is their second game against Immortals. So they have emerged as the dominant team. And if you look at the standings, that's just absolutely amazing. Like, they're basically, apart from Immortals with a single positive round differential, they're the only team that has actually won more rounds than have been lost. Everyone else is on a negative round differential, which is crazy. So yeah, absolutely. But I think it's been more the second half of the season that has cemented that position for them, rather than just a dominant performance throughout.
And FaZe is a team that has always, it seems like every event they're one of the favorites, but they very rarely perform at LAN. That's just a fact. At the Invitationals last year, they did make it out of groups, but lost their first matchup. I believe that was against EG. A lot of people thought that they were the best looking team at that point. At Paris, I don't even think they made it out of groups. I'm pretty sure they didn't make it out of groups.
Yeah, Paris, I think all of the Latin American teams struggled.
Yeah. So I really need FaZe to show me something at LAN. I love the guys. I wish I've picked them. I think I picked them. No, at Atlantic City. If you guys remember the thing that we did, where we picked the teams. I'm pretty sure I picked them in that. And they let me down. I think they lost the first round. So. Yeah, they got to show me something at LAN before I jump on that hype bandwagon again.
You sound a little bit brassed off there.
I'm not,
they owe you personally.
They do. They do. I had to rock Rogue's Twitter emblem for a week, man.
Yeah, man, that sucked.
Righty-ho. So let's... Now, FaZe, they have cemented their place. They're going to the finals. They can't be caught. Let's look at what else there is to play for. So we're looking at, for all of the regions now, let's start off with LATAM since we're there. Who is going to be that second place team? And then also maybe look at relegation, what we'll be seeing there. So for Latin America, we have Immortals currently in the second position, and we only have one more game day remaining. So if Immortals either wins or draws their game this week, they're definitely going to the finals, 100%. If Immortals lose, then it's between Team 1 and Team Liquid to potentially take that spot. It's between, they're going to be playing each other, and Liquid is actually currently in fourth, but because of the way the system works when points are tied, if Immortals lose, they stay on 21 points, and it's up to the other two to catch them up with one win. If Team 1 wins, they will still remain in third, even though they will also get onto 21 points, and that's because Immortals have beaten them in the past. If Team Liquid win, because Liquid has beaten Immortals in their games, they will actually leapfrog and go into the second spot.
So it's decided on the head-to-head results, not round difference.
We can go through that. So if you scroll to the bottom, you will see the five criteria that are used to separate teams when they're on the same score. If two teams are on the same score, the first criteria to separate them is the mini-league points. That basically means is between the games that they've had, and each team has played each other twice, who is the winner? Right? If one beats the other one twice, that's it. That will automatically put them ahead. If they've drawn twice, or if one won once and the other team won once, which puts them in the mini league in terms of wins on the same position, then you go down to criteria number 2, which is the mini league round difference. So in terms of playing each other, what is the round difference in terms of these two teams facing off against each other? Then you go to the overall round difference, which we see in the table here shown. If that's the round difference in terms of rounds won minus rounds lost across the entire two halves of the season. Then the fourth criteria is how many rounds have been won. So if the round difference is the same at this stage, then you go who's won more. And if they've even won the same number of rounds, that's when you finally go to a rematch, which will decide who gets the top position above the other.
Yeah, and it sort of sucks for the Immortals that they lost their 2 matches against Team Liquid, but I guess for us it keeps it interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. If Immortals had won against Team Liquid, if the mini league points would put them ahead, then this would already be decided. But as it stands, there is still a minor chance. I mean, it's not an awesome chance. Immortals need to lose. They can't draw and they can't win. Then
Immortals is playing a team that has a lot to lose as well. They're playing NIP, which is currently in 6th place, but tied, and as well as far as points with the 7th place team. So NIP needs to win in order to avoid relegation.
They'll be fighting.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's up to Immortals to cement their position. If they don't manage it, then Liquid needs a win. They can't draw, they can't lose. So we need a loss from Immortals and a win from Liquid for Liquid to have a chance, or to basically leapfrog and go to the LAN finals. Otherwise, it's going to be Immortals. But yes, you made a good point there. Let's look at the bottom of the standings. Black Dragons is currently in last position, but they still have a chance to catch up if they can beat FaZe. Good luck with that, I would say.
Yeah.
Good luck with that. If they can beat FaZe, then they can at least, in terms of points, draw with Pain and Ninjas in Pajamas, and then we need both of them, or Black Dragons at least, would need both of them to lose to even then go into the tiebreakers. Long story short, I think Black Dragons is probably in trouble at this point, and it's then between Pain, NIP, and maybe even Bootcamp in terms of who would be in that
Seventh
danger spot. Yeah.
Yeah.
Goody. Let's then move on to NA and see what this last gaming week has in store for us here. We know that Evil Geniuses are they the first? Are they cemented?
Yes.
I think
Yes.
Evil Geniuses is going to be playing No, they're going to be playing Obey.
But they own the tiebreaker. EG is the tiebreaker against SK.
Yes.
one
yes.
apiece.
It is one apiece,
but
but
one round.
Yes, exactly. That's where it comes down to the round difference in the mini league. Because SK lost 6-1 and because they only managed to beat EG 6-2, that means that no matter what happens, Obey stays first. Sorry, EG. What am I saying? EG stays first. They're playing Obey. So there you go. The interesting point here is then who will be number 2, and that's between SK and Rogue. And I think here the SK is currently in second position, but Rogue has a chance to beat them if they win. They can't draw, they must win, and that can take them into position 2. And in fact, SK will be playing Rogue this week. So that's that
tonight.
Match.
Yeah, it's great.
Exactly. So that match will be the one that decides who goes to the LAN finals. And there's no way it can not have an outcome. There's no way they can draw. It's either Rogue win and they go, or it's draw or lose for Rogue and SK goes. And I think maybe also to mention, Space Station is not far off. They're only 1 point behind Rogue, but at this stage, because of their loss to Mouse, they do not have a chance to overtake SK at this stage. So right. It's only between SK and Rogue. Going to the bottom of the table, like you already mentioned, Cloud9, with their most recent win, have managed to sort of elevate themselves outside of the relegation spots, 7 and 8. So it's definitely going to be between Obey Alliance and Noble Esports. The only question where we're going to be seeing answered after tonight's matches is whether or not, or which one of them will be going home. If Noble wins and Obey only manages a draw or a loss, then it will be Obey being automatically kicked out of Pro League and going into Challenger League. Vice versa, if Noble doesn't manage the win or only manages a draw when Obey manages that as well, they go. So Noble in the more precarious situation.
Yeah.
But maybe with the somewhat easier match, because they play Mouse, while Obey, as I mentioned earlier, plays Evil Geniuses. So they have a chance, but they do need to make it count.
Interesting side note here with the Obey EG is that you have Geo on EG and Skies on Obey, former teammates, and I don't think I think there's some rivalry there. We'll put it that way. I think that Geo would love nothing more than to win tonight and make sure that Obey and Skies gets relegated for the second season in a row. I honestly think that's kind of an interesting side story there. But Noble, I mean, Mouse has been so hot the second half of the season. I think they've only lost one match the second half of the season, so that's not going to be easy either. It's going to be an interesting night again for NA Pro League.
Yeah, you're all right. They've lost one against Rogue and they drew SK. Other than that, it's all wins this second half.
So you think after tonight we're going to see a bit of a reshuffle with some of these teams that go down and some of their bigger players? Do you think we might end up seeing them, popping up? And...
I mean, if you're the 7th place team and you still have a chance to go and win and come back in a Pro League, I don't think you would see a major shakeup. But the 8th place team, I mean, yeah, we saw what happened to CLG whenever they got relegated last season.
Yeah, it was ruthless, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, similar kind of, you'd almost feel that ENCE got gutted. Certainly lost a couple of their players, originally to Penta at the time, now G2. So that's kind of something that once a team is confirmed to be out of Pro League, that kind of happens. That sort of the better players out of that do get pinched by teams that are maybe still in Pro League at that time. So yeah, I don't think we'll see it immediately. Maybe for the team that is in 8th place, that's definitely out. But the 7th place still has that playoff against the 2nd placed Challenger League team. So everything's still to play for in that regard. So let's maybe then finish off on the EU standings. We know G2 are, even despite their draw and loss over the last 2 weeks, they're cemented in first place, nothing to play for. But behind that, we have 3 teams that can make it. It's Mocket playing Millennium this week as well. Mocket currently in 2nd place, Millennium in 3rd place, both on 22 points. And they're playing each other. So we have a situation that is similar to North America. If Mocket draws or wins, they definitely go through. Millennium with a win can overtake Mocket. And the difference to North America is that Team Secret, even though they're 1 point behind, they are still in with a chance. Now, if Team Secret wins their match, and they're going to be playing against Chaos, so surely a team they can win. Let's see how their last game against them was. They won. Chaos versus Secret was the very first EU... Yeah, very first EU game this season, right at the beginning. They did win that, but only 6-4. So if Team Secret win, and there is a draw between Mocket and Millennium, then Team Secret can actually take that 2nd spot. It's a big if at this point, because they are relying on a draw between Mocket and Millennium, but they're not out yet. There is a chance. And I almost think they'll be kicking themselves for maybe their slight lack of performance over the last 2 games, drawing both against Mocket and against Penta before that. They could have had this in the bag, but they've had a very, very disrupted... No, I'm going to say they've had a bad second half of the season with a loss against G2, the only win coming against Supremacy, and then four draws.
Yeah,
they've struggled this second half, and they're still in with a chance, but they really, really need to firstly hope for a lot of luck, and then pull their socks up as well.
Yeah.
Do you have a personal favorite there that you would like to see going up into the 2nd place, or is it you don't want to say?
No problem at all. I mean, I like Millennium just for the quality of them. They have been, even for, like, Millennium was the team that when we did our little bet for Montreal, Millennium was the team that won it for me, because I backed them and the 2 of you didn't. So I owe them. I definitely think they're good. I backed them then, and I continue to back them now. Auglus, which have now been picked up by Mocket, they have done incredibly well. They were kind of underdogs and kind of sort of middle of the pack in the first half of the season. They've really, really picked up the pace this second half. And I have to say I'm surprised at that, because if you think back to the end of the first half of the season, there was a lot of conflict within the team. They lost 2 players because of an argument over... They played the first half of the season as Auglus without any kind of support from an esports organization, without a salary, without anything. So they were struggling, and some players on that team were really struggling to make Pro League their job, their profession, to be able to focus on it while actually just living off of nothing in the meantime. So they really, really wanted to get picked up by an org, and a dispute broke out between other players on the team. We had Hungry, certainly, and was it Aces? Was it Hungry and Aces?
I believe so.
Two players certainly ended up leaving the team in an upset, something that was rather unfortunate. And yeah, to see Auglus come out of that and do as well as they have is impressive, for sure. So definitely well done by them. Team Secret, I have to say, back when they played as I Don't Know in the first half of the season, they were the red-hot newcomers to EU Pro League, and I enjoyed that. Really enjoyed watching them play. Obviously, they back at that stage were representing UK players, so that's nice to see for the first time. Really seeing UK-based players get into Pro League as well, when half the league at that stage still was 100% French. So well done to them as well. It's a shame to have seen them sort of stumble a little bit in the second half, but still, like, the long story short, your question was, do I have a favorite here? I like all 3 of them for different reasons. So I honestly, any of them would suit me just well. I'd be happy for the team that makes it through, quite simply. Like, literally, the top 4 teams in EU Pro League right now would be also the ones that throughout this season have interested me the most, if I'm quite honest.
Supremacy for me. That's my favorite. I want to see them get up there to the second place spot.
Maybe with their second win, with their second win in the entire season.
I'm probably rooting for Secret, just because I believe that potentially they could be the second best team in the world and a real challenge to G2 on their best day. That we've seen them beat G2 at LAN. The last loss that came G2's way came from Team Secret. So that would probably be the one I would like to see come through. Not necessarily because I want to see them beat G2, just because I want the highest quality teams there.
Yeah. I quite like Team Secret too. And also they do have British players, so not many of the European teams do. But Lucky's been around for ages, hasn't he? Like, he's played.
Yeah, absolutely.
Ducks. Is it P Ducks or what was his? God, going way back.
It was P Ducks or something like that.
Yeah, like wow, he's been around for forever. But definitely Team Secret. When they're playing well, they do actually. They're brilliant to watch.
Yeah.
Well, I tell you, I said it at the time when we were in Paris. For me, the semi-final between Team Secret and G2, that was the final. That was the real final.
Yeah.
And I said it at that time. If either of those teams had been playing the North American teams in the semi-final, I'm convinced we would have seen a G2 Secret final. So for me, that was the real final at the time. And at the time, they were, in my mind at least, the second best team in the world, which makes it all the more surprising to see how much they've struggled this second half of the season. But definitely still all the potential there for sure. And then maybe let's look at the bottom of the table. Things are a bit clearer here compared to the other two main regions. Supremacy, well done for them for bagging their first win last week, but it's far too little, far too late. On a round differential of -35, they are beyond saving. There's nothing they can do. The maximum points, even with another win, they can reach is 8, which still puts them behind Vitality. And even Vitality, if they win, they can't catch Chaos. So we know that Supremacy has already left, essentially, European Pro League for next season, and Vitality need to fight for their place against whoever comes up from Challenger League. And that's it, pretty much. Any remaining thoughts from you guys?
Going to be another fun night for Pro League. It is kind of exciting to see how it all comes down to the end here for the matches that still matter. It makes for exciting matches.
Absolutely. So, and then let's maybe throw it off to our final segment, question and answers. So anyone in the chat right now, if there's any comments you'd like to make, anything you'd like us to quickly discuss or briefly talk about, put your suggestions in the chat right now, and we'll see what we can go with.
I have one.
Yeah, there we go.
Dustin Simpson, Q&A question. Looking back at the Pro League season as a whole, do you like the way the season is merged into a long season with operators added in the middle of it?
I have to say,
yeah,
I don't mind it. That's what has brought us the opportunity to see every team play every other team twice. Before that, we didn't even get to see every team play every other team, if I'm correct, right? So now we get to see a chance for every team to play every other team, first in the first half, then again in the second half. And it has been interesting in terms of the dynamics, the cemented dominant players in each region for the first half of the season, for the most part, haven't really been able to maintain that position, which I find interesting. It just sort of evens out and averages out the performance and makes it more dynamic and more interesting to follow, because you don't know who's going to be the first, who's going to be second. And we've seen it in almost every region. The second space is still up for grabs on the very last play day. Sure, in a couple of regions, we already know, in all 3 regions, we already know who the #1 place is. But in terms of going to LANs, after having, what have we seen, 13 game days already, going into the 14th game day, the second place, the teams that are going to South America for the LAN finals are still up for debate. And I think that's worked out perfectly.
If I'm answering that question isolated to exactly what he asked, meaning how do I feel about the length of the season, I like it. I love it. I want some more of it. If we start getting into best of ones and stuff like that, it's a little different story. But just to answer that question specifically, yes, I like the length of the season.
I think the question also touched a little bit on how is it an issue with operators coming mid-season, but that's really not our concern.
They broke it up well. That big break with Paris, you know, I think that was okay. And it is a little, I think we're just now seeing some of the Maverick and Clash strats really blossom, which is a little bit strange because they've been out for so long, but I still like it. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you there, Pete.
No. I mean, it's not really, I was only going to say it's not really for us to be too worried about. I want to see the pros use the new operators as soon as they come out, because then I get a better idea of how I should be using them, because, you know, obviously you want to learn from the best, but it does take a little bit of time for them to know how they're going to implement and use them. We've seen it with Clash. We've seen them try to use Clash and then sort of drop her after a few rounds of playing defense, because it takes a little bit of time, and I'm sure they have to scrim it out and just work out exactly how to use these new operators. And I guess they have the ban phase there too as well, right? So if they really don't like a new but there's only so many you can ban as well. So
right, but let me shoot all of that down instantly, because what has really changed? Like, it's a valid question to say, oh, in the middle of the season, we're getting new operators and they have to adapt to that. And what do the strategy is evolving? What is the alternative? And what has the alternative always been? Instead of two halves of a season, those two would have been individual seasons. And then at the beginning of every season, you have new operators anyway. So
yeah, absolutely.
That's always been a thing. There's nothing really new to that, except that instead of calling it at the beginning of a season, we're calling it in the middle.
Yeah, I suppose they just bookended the season, right? Having the DLC come out with the new operators. But yeah, it's up to the pros to work out how best to utilize them. And obviously they had a little bit of a period after Paris. I know, like Pengu, I think, went away for a little while. So they did have that little sort of grace period to understand how they want to integrate these new operators and try them out on the test server.
Speaking of Pengu, I got Fabian in the chat, and you know, he's the guy who Pengu carries to all these titles. So, you know, shout out to Fabian. But he called us nerds. He called us nerds, so he had that coming. But if I would say, Rogue, to what you said earlier, if you think about it, so look at SK. You know, they had a really strong first half of the season. They struggled the second. So if in the old system, they probably would have gone to LAN. Well, they would have. They were in first place, so they would have a LAN under their belt. Who knows how they would have performed there? And now, because maybe they didn't master the new operators, I don't think that's the real reason, but you could say that they might miss out on LAN depending on what happens tonight. So
really interesting point. And you mentioned SK, of course. I think we can say the same thing about Immortals. Sure, they went to Paris, but didn't show up there and haven't showed up since. Very, very good points I think you're making. And maybe that's a discussion to think about for next week, is have a think about what happened to some of these, because we've almost seen it in every region apart from G2. The dominant players, or maybe the second most dominant players in each region, have fallen away in the second half. Why is that? Is it all the same reason? Is it different reasons? That might be worth diving into.
I got a question here if we're ready to move on.
Yeah.
And if you guys don't want to answer it, let me know, because I'm kind of putting you on the spot. But JD asked, what are Pete and Rogue's top 5 gadgets? I made the video listing my top 5 favorite operator gadgets. My list was number 5. Number 5 was Maverick. Number 4 was Zophia's Lifeline. Number 3 was Thermite's Exothermic Charge. Number 2 was Echo's Drone. And number 1 was Legion's Goo Mines. So,
damn.
Yeah.
I'm surprised by that.
Yeah.
I just made a quick note. So probably, I really like Pulse.
Okay. He was in my previous list. Yep.
it's just getting those C4 kills, smoke, mirror, and then from attack, Buck and Thatcher.
Oh wow,
interesting. Very useful, and in some cases, on some objectives, even essential operator. So nothing you can really argue with there.
Smoke especially, that's kind of one that I almost regret not putting in there. You think about how strong that gadget is. If you got 40 seconds left and the attackers have to push through a door and you got 3 left, you won the round.
In the right conditions, yeah.
Yes. Smoke's a badass, man. Smoke
he is
just bloody awesome.
Yeah, he is.
Until they buggered up his SMG, but we won't get into that again.
Yeah, for me, I'm going completely off the top of my head. I'm going to put Rook in there. I wouldn't say number 1, but I think Rook is one of the most undervalued, certainly in regular gameplay. I'm not speaking for Pro League. I'm not speaking for what the top teams in the entire world would do and can do with certain operators. But I think in general, Rook is one of the most underappreciated for the value he delivers, for sure. So Rook would be in there. Personally, I like Hibana. I've always liked Hibana. She's my favorite heart breacher still. Legion, for sure, one of my favorite defenders. I've been starting to like Vigil quite a lot. Now, okay, I'm going by operators, and that's what's coming to my mind. In terms of the gadget itself, I'd probably actually not have him in that list, if I'm quite honest.
If it was by guns, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah, or just
guns
in general.
And total package. Yeah, you got 3 speed, you got impacts, you got 2 good guns,
Yeah, good point, good point.
Yeah, Vigil's up there with that. But his gadget, I mean, it does leave a little bit to be desired a lot. Because,
I tell you who else on defense I would put in sort of a high rank as well would be Mute. I think, again, talking about regular gameplay amongst regular people, Mute can be extremely useful and underappreciated again.
Yeah.
Because if you put those jammers down in decent positions where you can stop drones from coming into and droning out the anchors, or even just stopping drones from going into certain areas around the objective, not too close, that can stall out an attack of a regular team quite significantly. It can slow them down. And I know certainly when playing on attack, not having that level of information is something that certainly causes me concern when going in and not being able to drone. So I definitely have him in there as well. And let's think about another attacker. Yeah, Maverick, the way he is right now, he's good. He can counter the counters against hard breachers. He is kind of a hard breacher. He's got a very decent, if mediocre, surprisingly, but most people might not sort of consider the M4 a mediocre gun, but stat-wise, it kind of is.
It's easy to use. It's easy to use, though. You have to say that.
It's a solid gun. It's not one of the best. It's not one of those. I think what makes it so powerful is the fact that he's 3-speed.
Yeah.
Right. That is just sort of a bonus multiplier on any gun. So yeah, I'd have him in there as well, for sure. Radio. I've not really had any questions. There's one from earlier. I think this is about an operator idea. Oh, an operator who can pick up guns from other attackers, or the ability to pick up guns. I don't think, just off the top of my head, that would really fit into Rainbow Six. It's
not enough, is it? It's not enough of a reason to have an operator in the game. There needs to be something else to it.
There is that, and I also see a huge risk in terms of the balance, because you think about operators, they're balanced on kind of 3 different spectrums. You have the usefulness and the power of the gadget, you have the operator speed and armor, and then you have the operator weapon. Now, if you have someone who can pick up others' weapons, and then maybe by luck of the draw, depending on who you catch and who you're able to pinch the weapon from, have an operator, whatever speed he's going to be, suddenly pick up gadgets or weapons that are not gadgets, specifically as a gadget being able to pick up the weapons that could be far too powerful for this operator or wouldn't really do much. So in general, I'd probably come down on the side of not something that I would want to see.
Also, the community's proven that we can't have nice things. Imagine the toxicity. So Ash is on my team. I pick this operator. I want Ash's R4C. I team kill Ash. I take her R4C. I know it's easy to get around. If you team kill, then you don't get a weapon. You know, you can't pick up that weapon. But I don't know. I don't know. I don't see this as being good for the game. I don't think it'll be that exciting. And I think
it's a good ability.
Maybe like you're saying like a side ability, like
it's not powerful,
almost like a Sophia withstand type of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that's really powerful. If it's just like a passive ability that this operator has, because geez.
Yeah. I don't even think it would fit. That's not how Siege works. Siege has unique guns that are usually specific either to one or two operators. That's how it's always been, and I wouldn't want that to be messed with, really, irrespective of what problems it could cause.
Yeah. We're attacking Snowmobile Garage. Make sure you take the operator who can pick up a gun from a dead body.
Could you pick up Glaz's gun? Would you still have the thermal?
It's a secondary ability.
Imagine that. Well, you kill Glaz, and then you're like, oh, you see, this picks it up. Like, you got to deal with them again.
Yeah, I think the idea was for this to be a defender, but still... Yeah, no, not my kind of thing. Anything else on your guys' side?
I got nothing.
There was a few questions. Do you think there should be different ADS sensitivity between a one-time scope and an ACOG? Says Darnell Cook. So you can change that on PC. There's a multiplier you can go in and change, but it feels really odd. So you can have the same mouse movement sensitivity. I doubt you can do it on console, but you can do it on PC.
I'm going to have to jump in there because I looked at this. Someone asked this in my stream over the weekend. What you can do is you can have different sensitivity for hip versus ADS. But ADS, there's only one slider for it. So if you have either iron sights, a one-times, or an ACOG with more magnification, you only have one slider for that.
In the .ini files, I'm sure, because I've changed it myself, and I had exactly the same movement on mouse for ACOG and one-time sights.
Okay, so you can. It's not in the game settings. You do it by going into the files and playing around
.ini files on your PC.
Okay, yep.
So I did that, and I thought it would be a really bright idea to do it. And I got the idea, I think, from Kickstarter or someone like that, and I researched it, and I found multiple Reddit threads on how to do it. And I thought, yeah, this is going to be brilliant. When I'm ADS'd in, it's going to be the same amount of me moving my mouse across, so my muscle memory, it's going to be spot on, it's going to be perfect. And it just felt really, really unusual that I had to switch it back. So it can be done on PC if you research it, but I doubt that can be done on console. And it feels odd because it sounds logical, but when you're actually moving your sight around, it doesn't feel right. I don't know how to explain it.
Would it be worth then maybe forcing yourself to stick with it for weeks or maybe months, and once you get used to it, it could be useful?
Maybe. I mean, you should try it out. I'll try and find the Reddit thread. Give it a go because it feels really bloody odd.
I can imagine that it would be unusual at first, but I can also see how having the exact same movement speeds between different sight zoom levels would be, from a on-paper perspective, useful.
This is what I went in thinking. I thought it was going to be mustard.
Yep.
I thought I was going to be trying out for G2 and Fabian was going to be like, oh, Pete, please don't kick me out. But it didn't pan out, trust me.
Fair enough. So if that's it for today, then we'll go ahead and wrap it up for this week. Thank you very much to all of those who joined us live and, of course, to you listening right now. We shall see you again next week at the usual time of 3 p.m. Eastern US, 8 p.m. UK time on Monday. At least that's the timing for the live recording, of course. VODs and audio versions will follow after.